So today I'm going to give you a tour of Walmer Yard. Walmer Yard is a development of 4 houses in West London designed by Peter Salter with Fenella Collingridge and developed by Crispin Kelly. The houses now form the home of the Baylight Foundation, which I run within Walmer Yard. The foundation is a charity which aims to increase the public's understanding of architecture through the experience of being in Walmer Yard. In normal circumstances, we run a public programme of events which explore architecture through experience. We use collaborations with those often outside of the discipline, such as neuroscientists, sound artists, musicians and choreographers, and we run residencies, workshops and tours, allowing architects, students and the general public to take a look inside the houses. So today I'm going to talk to you about Peter's design concepts and ideas behind the houses as we walk through house 1. So let's begin. So Walmer Yard is a private set of 4 houses which total more than 800 metres squared and are set around an open courtyard. It's accessed from the street up the series of steps, and a ramp down gives access to a basement car park. So here you can see the street that it sits on. And then we head up these steps and into the courtyard. Once inside the courtyard, the 4 houses unfold, but you still get a glimpse back at the street. The courtyard is designed as a shared space between all the houses, and the houses are tightly squeezed onto the site. There used to be a series of workshops and studio spaces on the site, but Crispin had decided to redevelop this with housing, and the process to do this began about 15 years ago. So here you get a glimpse back at the street from the courtyard, so there's always a connection. And then this is house 2. House 2 has 2 bedrooms and living space is kind of right at the top of the house. Then this is house 3. House 3 is the largest of the houses. It has 4 bedrooms and its front door is just concealed behind that concrete wall. This gives privacy from the street as it's directly opposite the main gate entrance. And then this small house that you just see at the back there is house 4. House 4 is the smallest house on the site, and it's quite different due to its proximity to the housing estate, which you can just see behind, and to a listed tree just on the left hand side. I think it's the left. I don't know which way this kind of comes around, but it meant that it couldn't be built up. There were kind of rights to light issues and things like that, so it's actually just 2 stories, and the story with the bedrooms on is actually dug into the ground, so from above it just looks like 1 story, and it's all open plan, which is quite different to the rest of the houses. As you'll see when we're going in to house 1, the houses are quite cellular, whereas this one is all kind of open, and because of the surroundings and the trees and the estate and the other terraced houses nearby, we couldn't have any windows on the outside walls, so this one is lit completely from above from roof lights. and then this house here, this is house 1, which we'll go inside shortly. Each of the houses has its own front door off the courtyard, and that was very important for the social aspect of the development and for encouraging neighbours to interact within this shared space. The concrete benches along each of the walls are also designed for that. It might be a place where you would have a coffee in the morning, sit and read a newspaper, or just kind of share a bottle of wine with your neighbours, or place your shopping while you're trying to unlock the door. Many elements of the courtyard are also there for privacy and for sound. The oak blocks that you see on the floor are there to soften footsteps, while the grey render on the wall is actually an acoustic render normally used on motorway tunnels. And the shutters that you see, they're there to trap sound behind them, stopping it from reverberating around the space and the courtyard. But they also move in kind of banks, and this allows the kind of residents inside to have a control over how much light is allowed in, but it also allows for privacy. They're controlled from within the houses by what Peter describes as a tiller arm. It's kind of just a bar that goes across, which you can then move like this by opening the window and putting your arm out. By controlling it yourself, you kind of have a connection with the movement. So we'll now go inside house 1. Inside there's a play on light. Peter is very interested in the qualities of light and the idea of dullness or like dingy kind of light. So the stairs are purposefully dark as you enter, and then as you move up the building they get a lot lighter. But right now we're going to go down half a story and into the kitchen, which is right at the front of the house and at street level. So this kitchen is one of the largest single spaces in all the houses. It acts as a kitchen and a dining space. It's a great space for entertaining. We've had quite a lot of parties and dinners and things in there. I also always think it's one of the best places to talk about the materials used in the project. So for me, I've been working at Walmer Yard for about 2 years now, and when I first came to the building I thought, wow, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of materials, but actually the kind of more time I've spent there, the more I've realised there's kind of 4 main materials, and these just get reused in slightly different ways, but they're kind of used consistently throughout all the houses. And there's quite a simplicity to this use of materials. So I'll just discuss those. So the main material that you see kind of used throughout is concrete. It's in situ cast concrete, which is used for the walls, the floors and the ceilings. On the floors, the concrete has been kind of ground back to reveal all the aggregates, and Peter's also placed black Thames river pebbles in there to visually break up the surface. And then the ceilings are cast against vinyl, which gives them a softer kind of textural quality. And then oak is used throughout for all the cabinetry, all the shutters and all the furniture. And then there's clay plaster, which you can just see on the far wall there, but you'll see it better as we move up through the house. And that's used to kind of soften the impact of the concrete, so it kind of helps with the sound, but it also gives a kind of slightly softer atmosphere, and it's really good, especially in the kitchens and the bathrooms, for helping with the air quality and taking in the kind of moisture from the air. And then in the kitchen you can just see cork is used for the floor. This is kind of only used in the kitchens, and Peter calls this the Birkenstock rug. It's named after the Birkenstock sandals, which you'll always see him wearing, and it's used here with the intention that it softens the kind of sound as you're chopping. It kind of cushions your feet. It's kind of nice and to stand on as you're working in the kitchen. And then in the far corner, I think this will just pan over to it in a minute. I'll give it a second. So in the far corner there you can see the, it'll just pan up in a minute, you'll see the coloured glass. And that coloured glass is used throughout the project in different places. The colours were chosen to match colours from John Soane's house. And they kind of wash the concrete walls with splashes of colour at various times of the day. These shutters here are also designed to allow light in through the top even when they're closed. And they give this idea of layering, which comes from Japanese architecture. And Peter is really heavily influenced by Japanese culture and Japanese architecture. His only other built work is in Japan. And you see a really clear influence in the development of these ideas. So here you can just see the cast in situ concrete and the kind of round elliptical concrete of the stair, well, just there. That the shutters for the concrete stairwell were actually reused through all the houses, so you see kind of this elliptical stair repeat. And here you can just see the different concrete of the treatment of the walls. So where there was an issue with the concrete, say like a shutter had blown out or there was kind of imperfections, they would scabble back the concrete, so you get this texture here. And the texture is kind of very similar to what they did on the Barbican, and I think there's quite a lot of Barbican references in here. Peter had a flat there. And if you go on a Barbican tour, they take you to the bit where they tested the concrete, and they were testing this kind of scabbling technique. It's where they just take the surface off the concrete, and it kind of reveals all the aggregates and the stone and the texture. So now we'll head up the stairs to the first floor. So this was shot on a pretty dull day, but you can still see the stairs are quite dark to negotiate. So here we are on the first floor. And you can see the connection here back out to the courtyard through this protruding window box. The connection to the courtyard is really important in this project, and the connection to outside spaces. So all of the all of the bedrooms or living spaces all have this kind of connection to the outside, and almost like a looking back at the other houses. Either through a window box like this, or a small terrace, or a balcony. And you kind of look back at the other houses, but you never really see directly into them. So although it's quite a tight site, there's always this idea that the houses are quite private once you're inside them. So now we're just going to head into the master bedroom. And the bedrooms are all placed on the first floor. They all have quite a low ceiling height, and the idea behind that being that if it is lower in the bedrooms, then it can be more generous in the social spaces. We're obviously limited by the height of the surrounding buildings, so there was a kind of limit of how high the buildings could be built. So to get around this, they kind of made certain spaces lower inside. The bedroom uses a clay plaster for its walls, in both kind of a light, almost white colour and a sandy colour. You can just see it on the walls there. And the clay kind of softens the space. And you just see a small kind of terrace there out to the front, so this always has this connection to outside. And then these are the wardrobes of the project. So the wardrobes are really important in this project. They're one of the kind of bespoke pieces of furniture that Peter spent a lot of time on. They're made from oak and a really high gloss dark blue lacquer. The lacquer coming from this idea of Japanese architecture. The doors are curved to reflect the activity in the room, and then they're lifted off the floor and they don't reach the ceiling, and that gives the illusion that the room's larger, so you think that the kind of room carries on beyond the wardrobes. And then inside the curve, there's actually kind of shelving placed inside, and you can't really see it in this video, but there's actually a really small little hole cut out of one of the wardrobes with the idea that at night you would place your mobile phone through that hole, so you're kind of disconnecting from the outside world. And then the curtains, you see there, they're made from woven copper, and they were created by a student or a recent graduate of the Royal College of Art called Neha Ladd, who was kind of experimenting with weaving copper wires. And then what you see now is a black steel bathroom unit, which are built kind of conceptually like pieces of farm machinery. You can see they're exposed, extended spot welds, and kind of Peter really likes the idea of seeing how things are made. It was really intentional that this would be on show. And they were fabricated on site and designed around the elements of the toilet, sink, shower and bath, which sit within them. So what they did was actually they brought cardboard cutouts of all of those and placed them on the ground and then drew around them, and that was where the walls would be, so everyone is completely different. And the internal red colour was chosen by an artist called Anthony Malinowski, who worked with Fenella on the colours for the project, and the red in particular was decided upon as it loses its colour in the dark and the red disappears completely into black. And then this wired glazing that you kind of see to the top of the bathroom walls helps to borrow light, while also shedding this quite purposefully over the ceiling, to give a different quality to the concrete at night. There was a bit of a worry that the concrete in the dark would seem a bit too much like a car park or a bit too brutal, so they were quite careful about how they shed light across it. So we're now going to head out of the master bedroom and into the smaller bedroom of this house. Despite its small size, this is actually one of my favourite bedrooms in the development. It's got a really beautiful kind of quality of light, and I like how it's connected to the street while still feeling quite private and hidden away. Actually, this is the room I stayed in during the first few weeks of lockdown. One of the most striking elements of this room is this hidden pane of blue glass, which you can just see at a certain time of day, gives out this amazing particular blue light. This bedroom has pretty much the same elements as the other. Black steel ensuite, concrete and clay walls, and glossy lacquered wardrobes. And these are elements that are just repeated in every bedroom across the development. I'll just take a minute to talk about the furniture as well for the project. So the furniture was either chosen by Peter and Fenella or by Crispin, and it's all very particularly chosen for this project. This house is the one that pretty much remains to Peter's designs, with what you see that the chair you see there is an original Eames chair, and then there's kind of there's a few Le Corbusier chairs, a few Eileen Gray chairs, but most stuff has kind of either been chosen by Peter or Crispin has found it in kind of antiques fairs and things like that. And it's all very kind of particularly arranged. So we're going to head back up the stairs to the final space of this house. And as we head up the stairs, you'll notice the handrail. So the handrail of the stairs is constructed from rope wrapped in leather, and it gives a kind of soft, like slightly flexible feel. It feels quite weird because it moves when you hold it. And the idea is that it contrasts really dramatically with the hard, cold feel of the steel of the stair. A lot of the elements of this house are kind of really tactile, like what you touch is the material it's made out of. And you can notice as we move up here, the stairs are getting lighter. So out of this window, you can just see the mechanism for moving the shutters, that bar there. So you'd open the window and just move it. And just at the top here, there's a circular roof light right at the top of the stairs. And on a sunnier day, as the sun moves around, this casts a circular shadow on the walls of the stair. And you can kind of see this circular shadow move all the way around. There's a video actually on the website of that happening. It's really beautiful to watch. And then right at the top of the stairs here, we have a space which we call the yurt space. So this yurt is essentially a living room, a place to retire at the end of the day or socialise after a meal downstairs. Peter really liked the kind of idea of old houses where there was this kind of feeling that there would be a room right at the top of the house where, say, the men would go to smoke after dinner or something like that. And he wanted this house to kind of have that feeling that you would have dinner right on the ground floor, and then as the day moved on, you'd work your way up to the top. It's quite different to the rest of the houses, or the rest of the house, in the fact that the rest of the house is, very heavy. It's constructed out of in situ concrete, whereas this round room that sits right at the top has a really different feel. It's constructed out of timber, and it kind of echoes the hull of a boat. It's a timber frame, and then it's clad in copper on the outside. And the walls are this kind of dark grey clay, and this time it's been mixed with straw. And the straw stops the timber from cracking, or the clay from cracking with the movement of the timber. But it also catches the light, and in the right light, the straw kind of glistens with a real kind of golden. And then here you see the coloured glass again. It's been used to add emphasis to these kind of nook-like spaces, which are created where the rounded yurt butts up against the flat facade to the street. So these nook-like spaces are quite interesting because essentially on street level the building looks quite kind of normal. It's kind of proportions are really in keeping with the rest of the street, and it's not till you kind of come beyond that you realise that there's something really interesting going on. And you have these moments where this really flat kind of street facade meets these interesting shapes, and you get these nooks. And in this case, it's quite small, you can't really fit that much inside it, but in other cases, they're a lot larger, and you can fit a chair, you can sit and read. So like the other rooms in the house, this also has a connection to the outside and the rest of the development. And before we go outside, I'll just give you a quick kind of close-up of the clay and the straw material. So you can just see there, the straw. And now we are outside on the external balcony of House 1's yurt. So you can we're looking back at the yurt on the other house. You can see its copper cladding. And then that's the street entrance where we first arrived. And these next views in the video kind of really highlight how close the houses are together, especially at this level. So from House 1's balcony, which we're stood on, it's just a few 100 millimetres to this red stairwell of House 2. And despite being quite private, the houses all feel like they have a connection at this level. So we're just looking down at the courtyard, and you can see how all the houses kind of come in on each other. And the two houses opposite, they both have roof terraces, so you can just about see those in the video here. And then we're just going to look over to House 4, where I was talking about the house being just lit by these roof lights. You can just see them from here, and you can see how the connection with the estate beyond. I think what's always really important with this project is people think that because it looks so unusual on the inside that it doesn't have a connection with its context. But Peter, grew up in Notting Hill and has a real connection with this area. And I think the houses really reflect that, actually. There's a kind of tradition in this area, very small kind of workers' houses, of craftsmen's houses. So there's a lane down a road called Pottery Lane, which used to be just all potters. And there's a pottery kiln actually just down the street. And I think the kind of idea of these houses, they're kind of like quite small but quite tightly packed, kind of reflects that kind of historical nature of very small houses on a street and very kind of tight nature. And then there's a real clear connection with this kind of route looking down into the estate beyond. That's actually directly south, and it brings light in, but everything kind of aligns with that one route. And actually you can stand at the end of that estate and see right up to Walmer Yard. It's one of the kind of really interesting long views of the development. So yeah, we're just looking back at those yurts there just to show you the copper material, and that's also the grey render that you see there. And then that's the end of the tour. So if you'd like to know any more about Walmer Yard, you can visit our website, or drop me an email. We normally run a kind of series of events and things, but we're running a lot more kind of online and journals and things where you'll be able to see kind of drawings and stuff. So yeah, if you look on the journal page of the website, there's a lot more information on there. Thanks.